Hello, clap. That is what I have to do, or so I've seen people do on the internet. What's up, fucking degenerate friends and family? It's your boy Andy Leo, and welcome to episode 1. Look how fucked up my finger is. I just did this last week, or 2 weeks ago now. Might be broken. But anyways, welcome to episode 1 of Going Rogue with Andy Leo. This is my third or fourth time maybe trying to record this thing, but I think I've managed to figure it out. It turns out this video stuff is so much more complicated than I thought, and I've messed up the sound. It's okay. We're going to be all right. We're going to get things going. I'll get better as I go along, but hope everybody had a good Valentine's Day. Hopefully it was amazing. And because love is in the air, there's no segue there. This has nothing to do with love. We're going to kick it off with death, with the idea that someday you are going to die. And the reason why I'm only smiling because it's such a fucking heavy way to kick it off. But I think that this has been the most eye-opening kind of thought that's kind of propelled me forward this year into really, really pursuing what I want to do instead of being such a piece of shit all the time. 2018's over. We're dead in the center of February. I just want to check up on everybody and see what how your resolutions are going so far. You know, what kind of goals did you set for yourself? Let's motivate each other. Let's get this shit going. But it's still something I kind of wanted to talk about. Last year, you know, so many musicians and close friends, family members, and it just seemed like a very, very hectic time. And the death part really got to me is because everybody had all these plans set up, these new music or just life. I'm sure everybody had plans set up, and to just kind of it be struck out so quickly is something that got me thinking about, man, where would I be right now? Like, what would people say about me? What would be my biggest regret? What kind of excuses were really in my way to prevent me from achieving my goals? And I've been watching a lot of Jordan Peterson. I'm sure you might have seen him on the internet. He's all over the place. He's got a great book. He's on YouTube. Check him out if you haven't. But he had a quote he opened one of his lectures with that just stabbed me in the heart. It was this. I wrote it down so I didn't mess it up. It says, "With life, you're all in no matter what. This is going to kill you, so you might as well play the most magnificent game you can while you're waiting." Which is so hard body. It's two sentences that completely shook me to my core, and it for a lot of people, there's the realization of that kind of is scary. And as an example, I had this tweet I put out that was like shitting on myself. It was like at everybody in my life, and it was a cake that said "sorry for being a piece of shit" on it. And it got like the most success out of any tweet I've ever made ever. I think it's just weird that people resonate with stuff that is so narcissistic and such like a Debbie Downer kind of approach to these sorts of things. And as funny as it seems, and as much as everybody's like same, those small little perspective shifts on life or how you approach any situation or how you carry yourself make huge differences. And it kind of makes you not really responsible to motivate yourself or push yourself towards like actually improving. It baffles me that's what is the biggest thing ever on the internet is this like understanding that you're going to die, and that it doesn't mean that everything means nothing. If anything, that's the beauty of death, is that you get to tell the story the way that you want it. You get to set up the way, you get to decide who you want to be. And there's a time limit to how long it takes to get there. And instead of hunkering down and being, you know, scared to approach these situations, you gotta grab it by the dick and balls and just gun for it. I've talked about this on Jamie's podcast, the ones that we do together. Jamie Kilstein, check him out. He's a hilarious dude. He's super deep. He's super honest, and he's been an inspiration to me to try and get this podcast going. But yeah, as a generally anxious person, and like I'm sure everybody's got this whatever degree of anxiety. I'm sure there's a spectrum of how bad it is. It makes situations way scarier in your head, and I would avoid things. I would either get super into Netflix or distract myself with just like weed or chasing girls or whatever you can fill in the blank with, whatever it is that you pass the time doing. But you can't put off what's the most important to you, because those days of I'll just take the easy route, I'll just do it tomorrow, or I'll work on this, do this, will keep setting you back and back, and there will not be a moment where everything is perfectly aligned. The challenge will still be there regardless of how long you leave it waiting. There was a quote. I saw this movie. It's one of my favorite movies. It's called Rock and Rolla. It's a Guy Ritchie movie, but there's a scene where one of the main guys, kind of a junkie, is explaining to his friend why he's such like a mischievous person. Why he always chooses to do the wrong thing or mess with people. And he talks about that which ends bitter, that which starts bitter ends sweet, and that which ends sweet starts bitter. It could feel good to kind of put things off and to just kind of live in the moment, in the sense of not caring about the future and not thinking about the past. I think there's a sense of wisdom to that kind of existentialism perspective, but it's been manipulated, and it can be a reason to not live in a way that is going to be beneficial to you. Here's an example of something that was hard for me that I didn't want to do, but was actually a pretty good thing for me. I remember being in high school, and I was in choir as like a freshman, and I don't know if it's like this everywhere else, but in Texas, everything is competitive. It's not just football. Football is obviously the biggest one, but every sport. There's we had a hockey team. I didn't even know, it barely snows in Texas, but the hockey team was really good. So everything was really competitive, and this choir group would have like these competitions. They would only take a certain amount of people from each, voice range. There's like sopranos and altos, bass, tenor. I was a tenor, and so there were fewer of us. We had higher pitched voices, and so the demand was high, and the number of people that got in was even smaller than. So it was super competitive. Sorry, I had to cut because I have roommates now. Your boy's no longer homeless, which is a huge move, but I'm still getting used to the roommate situation. Anyways, it was super competitive, and music time came around, where the testing portion, where you have to go in front of these judges behind a screen, which is way more intimidating when you can't see them and you're just talking to nothing. But here's the thing: is I was a terrible student and didn't have my music, so I just kind of blew it off and fully did not intend to go. My stepdad comes in. He's like, "Hey, you have that thing today, right?" And I was like, "Oh, no, I'm not going to that." He's like, "What do you mean? You signed? You're in the group. You signed up. You have to get in there and do it." I was like, "No. I don't think you understand. I don't have my music. There's no fucking way I'm going." And he's like, "Nope, you have to go." And eventually, I was like, I cannot be any clearer about what I'm telling you right now. I'm not going. And we eventually escalated. It was the first and only time we ever were yelling at each other. But I went, huffing and puffing, as reluctant as I could be, and went in there. 3 judges behind the desk. I'm terrified. I don't even have my music. So I asked them, I was like, could I get some music? And they handed it from around the corner. And it turns out I got the highest score you could get. I didn't study my music, competition came around, and when they put together the group, they actually used me as an example. And instead of taking like 7 tenors this year, they took 6 because fuck you, bud, you didn't have your music. And I think it's hilarious that I was so convinced that there was no chance in hell that I would ever be able to do that. But you never when you get inside your head like that, you never know what reality is going to be like. It's always 1,000 times worse or 1,000 times scarier. But I'm happy that the opportunity happened, because I wouldn't have been able to, if I joined choir, I maybe wouldn't have been able to join this band and made like a living being a singer. Another example was like my first hospital experience. I don't know if anybody has any fear of doctors. I know it's like fairly common, but I think I developed one after this and then got over it like a few years later. But I was climbing up a ladder at my grandpa's house. Being a little kid, just doing what kids do. And it was fully spread up on the wall, just kind of propped inside. And I climbed up to the top, was just hanging out. And my mom walked in and was just, I guess, shocked. And I heard her gasp and go, Andrew. And I shook. It startled me, and I shook the ladder, and I felt it creaking. And I was like, no, this is, and it just fell back and landed on top of me, cut open my chin. I could see my skin kind of hanging out. It kind of looked like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo's like skin-colored beard. If you watch the old cartoons, it kind of looks like his beard is his skin. But I remember it didn't really hurt that bad, but I remember just everybody else freaking out around me worked me up to the point where I was freaking out. So we go to the emergency room. I'm super melodramatic, and it's easy to see where I get it from when you meet my family. Everybody's level like, oh, exclamation marks all the time. So we go in there, they get me on the operating table, and I'm fighting it. I'm freaking out. It takes and I'm a small child. I must have been like 5, maybe younger. I don't know. But I'm bucking and kicking and fighting, screaming. And they have like these, not handcuffs, but like these big squishy, like kid-sized, like hold you down apparatus. Is that apparatuses? I don't know. But they're holding me down. I look over at my mom and I'm like, why are you letting them do this to me? And she just faints, just right there on the spot. Drops on the ground. Doctor turns around and looks at her like, we'll fix it in a second. Let's just get these 3 stitches in. And it was painless. It took nothing at all. But I think that's something that a lot of people let get to them. I can't tell you how many times I've asked for advice from somebody about, girl problems or how I should handle specific situations. And you're getting, even though they may have your best interest at heart, it still comes from the filter of their past experiences. They're kind of projecting what happened to them onto you all the time. And it may not necessarily be good advice. Sometimes you just have to trust your gut. If you know in your heart what you want out of the situation, and you know the circumstances of the situation intimately, because it's ultimately you that's been dealing with this problem, then you can't let those kinds of that kind of chatter get in your head and discourage you. I know that a lot of people right now are dealing with like this instant gratification. We're always stimulated by everything around us. I can't tell you how many times I've set down my phone, like, oh, I got to get off my phone, set it down, sit there for 2 seconds and pick it back up and like keep scrolling or whatever it is that you decide to distract yourself with is not helpful, because you need that kind of in between time to yourself. You have to actually listen to what you want and where your mind is at to better understand, what exactly is giving you this anxiety, what exactly is holding you back. Why is it like this? But people forget. I think people forget, because that hang time is scary. I know that anytime on tour, it's easy. Your life is structured. I sing for 30 minutes to an hour a day. The rest of the day I can fuck off and do whatever I want. And there's a bit of structure, like the tiniest bit, and then a bit of the chaotic side of things, where I can go out and be shit-faced hammered every day if I want, or I can go. There's no rules, and in that chaos, you kind of find yourself floating from thing to thing, and it's a little bit easier. But when I come off tours, when it's the hardest, because that's when it's the hang time, and that's when I get the most anxiety. People that know me personally, whenever I come back from tour, have seen me just level 10 freak out. Like I can't even be at like I've been to like a mall and had like a panic attack just because it was so overwhelming to be acclimating back into normal life, if that makes sense. But like I said, I think a lot of people forget, who are trying, especially people that are trying to make their craft, artists, people like you pursuing your passions that, may be kind of a little off the beaten path. A lot of things that we forget is that you can put in your 10,000 hours of work and be really, really talented at your craft, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee a return of success. You know what I'm saying? And that can be a very discouraging thing to deal with. And you see it a lot out here in Hollywood. There's a ton of actors, a ton of models. Like, this is the place where everybody is coming out. That in New York, I guess, are pursuing these dreams. And a lot of people you see last 6 months, a lot of people you see last a while, and sometimes you see success, and it's amazing when you do. But I can understand why trusting your gut when you don't see an immediate turnaround would be discouraging. But I like to use the example of George Clooney for why refining your craft will pay off. He was 40 by the time he got his breakout role and became a household name. And I'm sure there were so many times along the way where he was thinking to himself, is it worth it? Like, should I be doing literally anything else? It's hard to trust yourself. It's hard to trust your process, but at the beginning of something, it seems super, super scary and daunting. Like at the foot of any mountain, you're like, I have to get over this whole thing. And it's just one step at a time. You could approach every day as one step. And once you take the first one, it's probably going to be the hardest one where you don't know anything. But after that, each one, you catch some traction, you pick up some momentum, and you keep going. And before you know it, there's days at the studio, for me, for example, where it'll go by and like, it'll seem like an hour, but we've been there for 8 recording something. And I think there's something really special about getting to that point where you've worked through the learning curve and you've worked through the hard part of your craft and can legitimately enjoy the journey that it takes to refine it and turn it into something magical. What's another one? Personally, for me, another reason, a regret or excuse, was that I was avoiding conflict altogether. You could ask my band. I prefer you didn't, but you totally can. About times where we all have had freak out moments on tour where we were drinking. Normally, alcohol's involved. We're drinking and something, hurt your feelings or whatever it is, and you fucking lose it on somebody, and then you wake up in the morning not really remembering what happened, but you're like, oh, I probably shouldn't have said that. I was like, did I quit the band last night? And you're like, yeah, and you slap Brandon. Just stuff like that is never anything that's fun to deal with. There was another time, this one makes me cringe when I have to tell it because I thought of it. There was like a New Year's party, and I was we had these pre-made drinks set up, like a menu that people could order from, so we could kind of control how much people were drinking. Otherwise, people would have just gone ham and just been, all over the place before the ball dropped or anything. But we had people ordering drinks off the menu, and we knew the bartender because we had helped set up the party. And so she had a bottle of Jameson just hidden underneath the cabinet, and there was like a code word we would say, and she would hook it up. Well, for someone like me who's level 10 all the time in whatever direction I'm in, wasn't the move. I was entirely too drunk, too fast, and I was. This is all stuff that have been told to me at this point. I black out, and we're sitting in a room. I don't know how many people are in there, but it's a lot of people. Like, it's a bunch of friends hanging out. And I'm sitting there, and there's this girl that was kind of into me that was there, and I grabbed her and I sit her on my lap, and I'm like, hey, you're a good person. And she doesn't have a problem with it seems, but my girlfriend who's in the room does, and walks over, like smacks me in the head, is like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. This is probably your fault. And I don't know. It ended up being like a big mess, and I was in the doghouse for a long time, and you never want to be at the point where you're out of control. Just people that are partiers. That doesn't have anything to do with this lesson, but as a byproduct of these, few experiences, I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna be the aggressor anymore. I don't want to shit on people's moods or vibe when I come in. So I'm gonna be the virtuous person here and avoid all conflict altogether. Well, here's the thing. I thought I was tipping the scales, but instead you're flipping everything backwards, where now you're getting stepped on. You're getting walked on all over. And we're back. Sorry, I got cut off again. But yeah, you're getting stepped on, you're getting walked over, you're not saying things that bother you because of, avoiding what people being in a bad mood, people being upset at you. That's no way to do it either, because if you remove your spine, essentially, you're going to get tossed around and you're not going to be happy. Things will build up and you're back to square one. So being anti-conflict is useless. It's going to make you useless. There's another quote that goes like, would you rather be a gardener in a war or a warrior in a garden? And I think that having the fight in you to go out and pursue something or fight, knowing the time and place to fight for something, is so much more essential than not having a backbone to support yourself when the time comes. People won't take you seriously. And so it's about kind of finding a middle ground there. But once you get rid of, those are the examples for me of things that, excuses and concerns that were messing with me, that weren't keeping me fulfilled when I knew I wanted to pursue something. Another example that I purposefully put myself into to try and battle this was martial arts. I've been super into jiu-jitsu, and I could talk for forever about it now. I'm super obsessed. But this situation where in your head, the worst thing that could happen is somebody trying to murder you. Like if that's the worst case scenario with conflict, and you practice that exact circumstance every single day, then things that used to stress you out, at the office or whatever it is you get in your head about, they seem so much smaller, so much less significant. And it's a way to push yourself and test your limits. Physically is so important to knowing yourself. I think knowing where your breaking point is essential, because it's so much farther than you think. You're so much more capable than you give yourself credit for. And I think that's something that has been inhibiting people from reaching further goals. So in the comment section, let's get some friendship going. I know there's not a lot of us, so it's easy for me to respond to everything, but let's talk about what your passion is. And there's no reason to feel embarrassed about it. I'm out here in LA where everybody's trying to do that exact thing. And so it's not outlandish or crazy for you to, oh shit, that was so loud. I got a text message. It's not outlandish for you to feel like there's a lot of competition, because there is, but it doesn't mean that it's not capable. People don't sell yourself short, because it's possible and it's more than doable. So there's that. Tell me what your passion is in the comments, and then let's talk about what kind of excuses as well. What kind of dumb excuse are you willing to admit to and admit to yourself that it is an excuse? I think by just putting it out there and being self-aware and being able to take it out and look at something objectively is essential to understanding what the next step is on how we get going. So let's do that. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm going to have guests on. I'm still furnishing this giant empty apartment right now, but I've lined up a few people I think you'll be really excited about. Some entrepreneurs, some fighters, some musicians. It's going to be really, really fun. And so I admire these people. I think that if they have something really cool in the story that resonates with you, then maybe they'll inspire you to do something really cool as well. Thank you again, and I fucking love you guys. Let's keep this thing going. Later.